Good day, everyone. As you have observed in our previous lessons, you are creating a program in just a sequence of instructions. What does it mean? It simply means when we created our programs before, kung ano ang pagkakasunod ng instruction, yun yung susundin ni compiler. Kasi, in basic sense, binasa lang naman niya kung ano ang gusto nating gawin. So basically, kung ano yung pagkakasunod-sunod ng instructions sa program natin, yun talaga yung pagkaka-execute niya. Now this time, I will introduce to you the basic control structures here in C++. What do you mean by control structures? Control structures talks about the process of decision making in a C++ program. This instruction controls the flow of the program. So there are 4 ways on how the programs are being processed. First, in sequence. Next is by selection. Yan yung pag-aaralan natin ngayon. It means by making a choice, which is also called a branch. Next, by repetition. So the statements are being executed over and over again. Usually we call it a loop. And lastly, by calling a function that would be discussed in the future. So these are their flow diagram. As you can see in the sequence, you can see the statements are being executed in a sequence or in order, one after the other. Then we have selection. Usually, you will undergo decision making in this type of process by determining whether an expression is true or false. So statements will be executed under the true or under the false, depending of course in your logical expression. And we have also repetition. Repetition is a process in which the statement is being executed over and over again until expression becomes false. Now let us start with selection using if and if-else statements. So in creating expressions within our selection control structures, we must be using the following relational operators. So we have this for equal to double equal sign, then we have not equal to, then less than, next is less than or equal to, then greater than or equal to. Please take note of the difference between single equal sign and double equal sign. Single equal sign is usually used for assignment purposes. So it just simply assign values to specific variables. That is why it is called assignment operator. While double equal sign will determine if two variables or expressions are equal. That is why it is called equality operator. So these are examples of the relational operators with integers and real numbers. So first, 8 is less than 15, so the value of this one is true. So 6 is not equal to 6 is of course false. 2.5 is greater than 5.8 is false. 5.9 is less than or equal to 7.5, so that is true. And 7 is less than or equal to 10.4, that is true. So to compare characters, you can use this machine collating sequence of the characters. As you can observe, the ASCII code has its own ASCII values. So that is how you compare. So each character has its value. So let us now proceed in the one-way selection. I will give you ideas on what is one-way selection by giving you these examples. So example number 1. A bank would like to send a notice to a customer if her or his checking account balance falls below the required minimum balance. That is, if the account balance is below the required minimum balance, it should send a notice to the customer. Otherwise, it should do nothing. Next example is, if the policyholder of an insurance policy is a non-smoker, the company would like to apply a 10% discount to the policy premium. So as you can observe in these problems, These problems talk about decision making. With the if statement in the problem, it simply tells us that to solve the problem, the program will undergo decision making. Since this problem has only one if statement, it will be solved using one-way selection. In one-way selection, this is the syntax. You must use if, then followed by the expression, then the statement. In control structures, expressions or logical expression is sometimes called decision maker because it decides whether to execute the statement that follows it. So for the example of one-way selection, we have if the score is greater than or equal to 75, the system will output passed. So in this program, if the score is below 75, it will just end the program. It is basically because we only have one condition or the program is just using one-way selection. Now let us proceed to two-way selection. Here is an example for you to somehow grasp some idea. Example number 1. If a part-time employee works overtime, the paycheck is calculated using the overtime payment formula. Otherwise, the paycheck is calculated using the regular formula. So this will be the syntax of the two-way selection. It begins with the reserved word if, followed by a logical expression contained within the parentheses, followed by a statement. So in this syntax, we call that one statement 1, followed by the reserved word else, followed by the reserved word else, then followed by a second statement. Statements 1 and 2 are any valid C++ statements. You can also have multiple statements within the first statement or statement 1 and statement 2 as long as you will contain those statements within a bracket. So in a two-way selection, if the value of the expression is true, statement 1 executes. If the value of the expression is false, statement 2 executes. We have this example. This is the if-else statement of the problem that we have read in the previous slide. So if hours is greater than 40, so wages will be equal to 40 times rate plus 1.5 times rate times hours minus 40. Else, wages will be equal to hours times rate. Okay? So the first formula will be used if hours will be greater than 40. Otherwise, this will be the formula to be used. So when we put these statements in a running program, it will look like this. Okay? So the if-else statement is located after the hours have been entered or determined. In that way, the program can evaluate the expression if hours is greater than 40 because hours has already a value. Now, compiling the program, it will have these possible outputs. So for less than or equal to 40 hours, it will use the regular formula. And if the hours is more than 40, then the new formula was used. So class, that is the selection, if and if-else statements of C++ programming. I hope you have learned something from this video tutorial. This is again Sir Mark, and thank you for watching.